All right, let's finish up now the Hermetic Axioms, which is something that I think was the best part of the book for me, because once I got there, it was like recapping everything into practical terms. And I want to add, of course, my flavor to it, because that's just the nature of interpretation. So, the lesson is always the same, it's just a different way of expressing it. And since we already took a trip through all the Hermetic principles, then it's easier to understand this. And also, I think the wording in this chapter, in the whole book itself, it's a little outdated, meaning that there's a shift already in our language, and you'll see what I mean when we get there. But the message is always the same. It's not to say that it's wrong or it's wrongly said. Nothing is right or wrong. So I just want to kind of soften these principles, and what I want to do is kind of give, like I said, my own flavor. So I have them here on a slide so we can read it. I'm sorry I didn't have a better picture, and I know it kind of melts, but I'll read it so you don't have to read it yourself. And I want to start with the first one. Actually, this is the first one that it's in the book, and it is probably my favorite because it kind of summarizes the reason why a lot of people, especially you who is watching this and is getting interested in this, it's finding friction in their lives. So let me get into this, because Ra has a different way of putting this, and I'm gonna overlap it with it. So let's start with the first Hermetic principle that is in the KYBALION, and they say, the possession of knowledge, unless accompanied by a manifestation and expression in action, is like the hoarding of precious metals, a vain and foolish thing. Knowledge, like wealth, is intended for use. The law of use is universal, and he who violates it suffers by reason of his conflict with natural forces. I think this is extremely well phrased, and if you should be studying the law of one as well. Otherwise, I don't know what attracted you to my channel, but if you haven't, you really have to check the raw material, the law of one, because Ra explains, even though they say that there's only one law, that is the law of one, they also call laws or ways distortions of this law. And in any case, they talk about the law of responsibility. The law of responsibility states they don't explain it, like Ra doesn't give us things like these, but when you read the material, you realize that this is what they're saying. The law of responsibility means that once you get information and you understand it, you have to apply it. If you don't apply it, then you will suffer the consequences. I know it sounds terrible. It's just like a god, it's smiting at you, but that's not what's happening. It's just that this also goes with the saying that, how do they say it in English? It's ignorance is bliss. You see, because it's not that ignorance is bliss. That's not true. It's just that when you gain knowledge, you became a lot more depressed and sad, because for several reasons. But one of them is just because you feel like you don't know enough, or in any case, this just applies to you not being able to use this knowledge for yourself. And that's because we don't put it in application. So whenever we gain information and we don't put it into application in our lives, we're going to, what do they say, suffer. Those who violate, basically those who don't use the knowledge and the information, suffer by reason of conflict with natural forces. The natural forces are the ones that are propelling you to use this knowledge. It's like, you gain something very valuable for you in your life and you're not applying it, then you're going to feel friction in your life. Things are just not going to be the same. You're not going to see people the same way. You're not going to see your job, anything. So you have to take action. You have to take action. That doesn't mean that you have to do something in particular. It's just that you have to put into practice the knowledge. Doesn't mean, leave your family, leave your job. It's just to put it into practice in whatever your life situation is. But if you don't put it into practice, then you're going to cause friction. And I think that's a better way to put it in, as opposed to saying, suffer. But it's the same way. I'm being politically correct to a degree, which shame on me. But that's what this means. I mean, if you are studying the law of one and you know what the law of responsibility is, this is exactly the same thing. It's telling you to put into practice those things. I'll finish with this. This is why psychedelics are not to be recommended to anybody. You don't know. You don't want, to put somebody in that place. I mean, you shouldn't. And when people take psychedelics and they have a profound experience and they have a huge realization, they change forever, because now they need to apply this to their new lives. And people who don't, then they start feeling, and believe me, you probably know a lot of them too, but I found a lot of people in my journey going through this process of myself walking this road. I found a lot of people who are troubled because they have done so much psychedelics, and they gain, they open this portal into knowledge, but they get, it's really complicated. But psychedelics should be taken with care, and wisdom is the right word here. In any case, you have to put it into practice, and people who don't put it into practice, they just suffer the consequences. I mean, yes, I'm going to use KYBALION language. Why not? So, okay, the other axiom, it's pretty simple. To change your mood or mental state, change your vibration. Well, if we haven't heard this enough, in the new age jargon and the way we get messages and inspirational quotes and so on, that's exactly what it means. It's just change your mental state. This has been explained already with the Hermetic principles, so I'm not going to go into this, but just know that you have the power to perception is key here. Your perception is what's dictating your emotions and your feelings of life. So if you can just tinker with perception, and just say, this is why affirmations work, because you're kind of forcing, your subconscious to think one way. People like you are into gnosis, which means, really getting knowledge from inside, not from outside, not intellectually. So it's easier for us, to change our perception and thus change your vibration. That one's pretty simple. The other one says, to destroy an undesirable rate of mental vibration, put into operation the principle of polarity and concentrate upon the opposite pole so that which you desire to suppress. To that which you desire to suppress. I can't read today. I'm gonna blame it on my slide. So, okay, kill out the undesirable by changing its polarity. In any case, this one is, all right, to destroy an undesirable rate of mental vibration, put into operation the principle of polarity and concentrate upon the opposite pole to that which you desire to suppress. Kill out the undesirable by changing its polarity. This is one that I want to rephrase because the message is the same. Ra actually gives us the same exercise. It's funny, right? I wonder who gave the KYBALION back then in Egypt. Who was it? Who was this Hermes? Where was he from? Which social memory complex? If you know the answer, leave it in the comments. Okay, so Ra gave us the exercise to balance out a mental thought with another that is of the opposite. So concentrate upon the opposite of any mental thought that is it's coming to you or it's bothering you. Now, how does this work in practice? Well, first of all, you create polarity by associating yourself with one side. See, because again, the best example as usual is good and evil. By you believing yourself good, you are creating evil. And so you're associating yourself with evil. You are creating that magnet for it. So the more good you feel with yourself, and the more good, you feel, this doesn't mean, don't feel good about yourself. It's about feeling righteous. It's probably the right word. Righteous and how things should be, and I should order things this way, and things should be this way. The more you're creating that evil. And so you are playing the game. Okay, you're creating the game and playing it at the same time. You should be aware of that. There's nothing wrong with it. But just know that if you got caught up in the game and you're thinking, oh, evil's gonna, eat me one day, these things are going to happen to me. If you want to suppress that, then you have to join that and understand. You have to concentrate on that opposite and say, I created that. I am responsible for that. I am the one creating it. I am its creator. So now we are one. And you kind of unify this. There is simply, I think this is, I don't think there's any other way. You have to accept that both things are just one, and you're creating it. So this is what the axiom means. I know there are other examples that I can't even think right now, but I know in Buddhism they tell you the same thing. At least in Buddhism, it is expressed that you have to collapse, the duality in essence. And collapsing the duality is basically the same thing. So that's the message. Just realize it's not any action that you have to take. It's just realization that you are the one creating it by assuming one position or one pole. Next. They say another one, mind as well as metals and elements may be transmuted from state to state, degree to degree, condition to condition, pole to pole, vibration to vibration. So transmutation, it's the same thing. So this one's easy. Your mind, like I said, perception, you can transmute anything. You can just take anything and I'll give you an example. Somebody who's yelling at you because they're so upset and they're angry. They got a trigger for something that made them feel angry. That anger they are giving to you, you can transmute that by simply not duplicating it. That's the key word. You don't duplicate it with the same person or another person. Or even yourself. I mean, you can use yourself as a platform for exercising this anger that you received. I mean, most of the time we're not in the game of that anger. So we just receive it, and instead of being upset by it, we just say or understand that that person couldn't handle that emotion. It was so much energy in that person that they just had to give it away, and they constantly give it away because they don't know what to do with it. So you receive it, it's a chaotic energy. And in your mind, you're going to be processing this. This is why when somebody offends us, we got the energy. It's like the hot potato. you're moving it around until it kind of cools down eventually. And that's the point. Not pass it around. To have somebody lose the game. I think it's a pretty good analogy. You cool it down. That's what you're doing. You're transmuting the heat into cold. That's why you got to stay cool, man. So, that's what you do. You kind of like transmute it into something that it's energy, it's random energy, and you can see the love in it because you see that the person lacks love or understanding, worthiness, whatever it is. You don't have to know. You just have to develop a compassion to know that they couldn't handle that energy and they're still struggling with it. So you are privileged to accept this gift of energy. So you can just let it be. In my lands, my shamanistic roots, they tell you to give it to the earth, to Pachamama, Gaia, which is the name of the channel. And it's a nice exercise, a beautiful exercise, because you're giving it to mom. Mom, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what it means, but hey, I'm giving it to you, and just love and respect for the person. Okay, so we have a couple more. Rhythm is the next one. It says, rhythm may be neutralized by an application of the art of polarization. Okay, this one brings us back to basically the same message. Rhythm is, as we explore, I like it as karma. Karma is this rhythm that's going on. It comes and goes and comes and goes. And the art of polarization is the same thing we used before. You know, by you, I know people who are into the law of one would understand, like, this is positive polarization. Is it? Well, not quite. You can, I guess, you know, if you want to create that, it's part of the whole thing, being polarized towards a positive in the ethical sense of service to others and so on. That is one way. But a practical way to see this is that you know who you are. You know what you are. You know, and so rhythm needs to go through duality. If you collapse duality and you understand that duality exists, and this is why you can't escape, in the KYBALION they say you can't escape rhythm. You can't escape law of cause and effect and so on. You can't. But you can be the witness of it and understand that there are both a system of duality. But you are that system. You, the mind. You, the person. Well, quite not the person, but the mind. So this is how you neutralize it. By the art of polarization, just means, to me, you know, they in the KYBALION they always say, you know, move to the side where you want to stay. I don't like that, you know, personally, because it's kind of like if you're moving to one side of the pendulum, then they tell you there's something else that is going to come in effect to this. Yeah, it's I don't like, you know, the way it's said. I know what they mean, and it's about, you know, rising above duality, basically, even though they don't say it that way. So yeah, it's basically the same thing. Neutralize it by collapsing duality. Collapsing duality is the end of all suffering, really. So, all right, we have a couple more. I think this is, no, I went too far. I think my slides are a little bit slow today. There we go, we're going back and forth. All right, nothing escapes the principle of cause and effect, but these are many planes. There are many planes of causation, and one may use the laws of the higher to overcome the laws of the lower. Okay. Once again, there is one, I don't even want to call it plane, but there is a state of no mind where everything is escapes everything, you know, and it's not an escape, it's a return actually. So this is above everything else, or inside everything else, or not even in above or below, not even inside or outside. This is just the state of silence, you know, the power of silence, which so many sages have talked about. But this, to me, is expressing, you know, that even though nothing escapes the principle of cause and effect, there are other planes of causation, which, again, you know, the physical plane, and this is basically in your mind. Let's go into your mind. You know, there are cause and effects in your mind going on and on. And there are higher levels in which you can become the observer. I don't like the word master or some of the words that they use here. It's observing, because a master is already playing the game again, in my dictionary. So I like the observer effect. And one may use the laws of the higher to overcome the laws of the lower. I mean, the laws are present in high and low in any case, but I think what they're meaning here is the state of mind in higher planes is, of course, different than in the lower. We know this as densities in the law of one. You know, escape from identity by going into the yellow ray, which is, you know, other selves. You don't have more identity. You know that you are everybody, and you know you then escape the plane of differentiation or division into unity or unconditional love, actually, and that would be green and so on. So the more you think higher in your chakras or your consciousness raises, then, you know, the more you can. It's not dominate. I don't like the word domination either. It's just that you can observe without being dragged by the lower planes. In this case, just the energy centers. All right, the last one, and we'll conclude this, is a pretty long one. I'm gonna read it to you again. They say, the wise ones serve on the higher, but rule on the lower. They obey the laws coming from above them, but on their own plane and those below them, They rule and give orders. And yet, in so doing, they form a part of the principle instead of opposing it. The wise man falls in with the law, and by understanding its movements, he operates it instead of being its blind slave. Just as does the skilled swimmer turn this way and that way, going and coming as he will, instead of being as the log which is carried here and there. So is the wise man as compared to the ordinary man, and yet both swimmer and log, wise man and fool, are subject to law. He who understands this well is well on the road to mastery. All right, this was a beautiful one. Again, one of the few words that I would switch a little bit, I think, is like give orders and rule over the other ones. I know in our humanity we're traumatized by these words of ruling, and controlling and, giving orders. This is all in our mind, though. It's not to, it can be used. I mean, I love that these words are here, because this is why our society has been subjugated by a few who understand these laws, and they put it into practice. And of course, they control and dominate people, manipulate them to do their bidding. And that's just how it works. I actually like it. It's funny, in the KYBALION they say that the majority of people are sheep-like people. And I know this is a word that already kind of like reeks of contempt for the sheeple, but it is true. I mean, the reality, they've known this for thousands of years, of course. I mean, Jesus knew it. It goes probably to Atlantis, from Atlantis, or even before that. So, but it's the truth. I mean, I don't mean to use, derogative language here, but people do behave like sheeps because there are shepherds, and they accept their shepherds. So, the shepherds know the rules, and this is what they do. But this, again, is for the practical purpose of the mind. In your mind, you're being ruled by the river, making that log float, and you are the log. In your mind, the log is you, and all the thoughts and whatever ideas, images, perceptions that you have, they're all the river making you flow, and you feel like you're that little log that is being carried around by the river, and you have no idea where you're going to go, and so on. So by rising above these, then you become the river. And you know that the river is not something you can control or manipulate. It just happens to be. Something beautiful happens here, and this is how I'll end this and the conclusion, because I think it's important. Taking into consideration everything I just talked about, is that by you rising above, and the highest level you can get to is pure awareness. In pure awareness, you know that you're not the thoughts, that you're not little me, that you're not the body, that you are perception. And from here is, I love when they say, that he who understands this is well on the road to mastery, because mastery is not to be, to lord over something or someone. It's to be present. Mastery is being present. A master is always in the present. A true guru is always in the present. And all his wisdom, her wisdom, comes from the present. It doesn't come from the past or the future or knowing, intellect, and so on. The wisdom comes from the present. So you, by being present, you're going to feel this. It's a huge change that happens when you start seeing your thoughts. And when I say thoughts, I'm not talking about superficial thoughts. Those are just the higher layers rather of thinking. There are thought forms and complexity of thought forms that originate in the mind that make you, they're so quick and fast that you don't catch them, and you just think they are a sort of, proper manifestation. But everything is fractalized, even in our thoughts. This is why silence, meditation, I'm changing when my vocabulary to say meditation, to say just sit in silence. because meditation seems to carry a lot of meanings, and meditation has no meaning. Meditation is just sitting in silence as much as you can. You don't have to, it's not like you fail to meditate if there's no silence. It's just that you have a sort of silence. Okay, deal with that silence. And so on you go until the point where there is, I mean, obviously I haven't reached that level, but there is a point where there is absolutely nothing. Nothing. And all that can be is the present. And now you're present. You're not in your mind. So it's a release from the identity that we have with thoughts. So this, again, the KYBALION is all about the mind, the oldest mind. I think the last axiom that I didn't copy here, let me see if I still have it in my, I think it says, I'll read this last part where they say, true Hermetic transmutation is a mental art because it's all in the mind. And I hope this made sense to you. I really wanted to finish the Hermetic principles because I think they give a lot of golden nuggets here, and it brings us once again to the state of meditation, which is something that has been it's the true form of prayer, as our Western religions have suggested we should do, without all the all the nonsensical stuff that they tell us. But that is the root of it, you know, it's meditation. We've been told by Ra, we've been told by the Taoists, Buddhists, Hinduists, of course. I mean, it's just all over the place. Our indigenous people in the Americas, we have been told the same thing. In fact, I just watched a video of one of this indigenous guru. To me, she's a true teacher and master. And one of the things she said, you know, is like, there is nobody to be prayed, you know, to. You don't have to pray to anybody. It is to sit in silence with yourself. And, you know, she's not a Buddhist. She's not a Taoist. She's not from India. She probably doesn't know much about meditation in the sense that we know it. But she knows about silence, and it's about the same thing. So, again, that's my best recommendation. I hope you like this. This is all the KYBALION that I have. Like I said, you know, go read it if you like it. I think there's a lot of good information there. It's outdated to me in a couple of things, especially the scientific, only in the sense that we have discovered a lot more, and it's now more obvious. But it still is a great read and a fantastic amount of wisdom that you can take out of this. So don't leave it in the intellectual level. Bring it to life, to experience. Remember the first Hermetic principle. I correct myself. The first Hermetic axiom that we read in this video. It's all about putting the law of use into effect, application in your life. So, with that, I thank you again for watching the video. Leave a comment if you want to share anything, and there is the description for if you want to download the book or if you want to read it online. I have a link there. If you want to support the channel, links are there too. And that's all I got. Thank you again. I appreciate you. I love you. I embrace you. I accept you in the weird way that you are, with all this nonsensical stuff that we read, because it's all it is. It's nonsense that promotes us to seek the self. That's all I got for today. See you in the next one.